What's funny is nobody actually asked for this remake. Now, when Ubisoft first announced that the first ever Assassin's Creed remake was going to be Black Flag, everyone's reaction was kind of like, why this game? Because Black Flag didn't need remaking. It came out in 2013 and it was brilliant. And more than a decade later, people still called it the best pirate game ever made, so why would they remake a game that was already great instead of the ones that needed it? And to be honest, I think it turns out that's kind of the whole point, but stick with me on this one. To get why this remake matters, you've got to remember where Assassin's Creed has been lately, and lately it's been rough. Somewhere in the big RPG era, these games got huge and somewhat lost the plot a little bit. Combat got more floaty, cutscenes stopped mattering entirely, everything kind of turned into gear icons, blue, gold, legendary status and combos, and a little store stuck behind a menu. Some people still love them though, and I don't fault them. AC Origins is one of the best Assassin's Creed games ever because of the story, but I don't kind of put Origins in the same realm as Odyssey, Valhalla, or Shadows for a very good reason, and that is the cutscene. So Origins, you're out, you're good, you know, stay there in the corner away from the other RPG stuff. But then Shadows landed and it didn't quite stick the landing a lot of players or developers were hoping for. It wasn't a disaster of a game, but not the game the series needed either, and plenty of us ran out of reasons to keep playing it. I mean, we got constant updates, and I don't think it was more of a quantity standard, it was more of a quality standard that sort of failed somewhere down the line. I mean, we all remember the Attack on Titan crossover, it just wasn't good. So let's be honest, this is a franchise that knows it's somewhat wandered off its original path, and to me Black Flag Resynced is that course correction. It looks like they went back to the game everyone agreed was good, but the only question a lot of people had on their minds was whether the studio could handle it and pull it off. And I think this is the part that made a lot of people nervous in the past when the game was first announced, because this remake was made by Ubisoft Singapore, and the last thing they shipped on their own was Skull and Bones. Now, a lot of you remember Skull and Bones. It had 10 years in development, cost a fortune. It was the first quadruple A game to come out from anyone, which was silly and laughable at the time, but it somewhat turned up as the answer to a question nobody really asked, and when all anyone really wanted to do was play Black Flag again. So the Skull and Bones studio is now remaking Black Flag. Didn't really fill people with confidence, and to be honest, at the beginning, me included. Now, I've got to be straight with you guys about something because it might change how you hear everything I say after it. I've been to that studio more than once. I flew to Singapore, played the game early, and I sat in rooms with the developers, producers, game directors, narrative directors, giving feedback on the game while it was still being built. Now, again, I know how that sounds. Reviewer gets flown out, comes back full of praise on the game, but I'm going to point out every place this game falls short, and there are some moments where it does, and you can decide for yourself whether I've gone soft on the studio. But I'm not going to pretend the visit didn't happen because I think it's part of the story. These weren't people phoning in a cash grab, the people working at the Ubisoft Singapore studios. A lot of them grew up on the series like we did, and they were genuinely terrified of getting it wrong. I watched arguments break out over tiny details. I mean, we were describing about how Edward's face should look, and it got so heated, many of us stood up in the room to argue with other people about what it should look like, what it shouldn't look like, and I was one of those people because, you know, we care about these games. A lot of people preferred his older look in the classic game, but I preferred his newer look, mainly because in the older game he looked more like a triangle, and in the newer one he looked more like a person and still had that Edward's look. He just looked more real in this remake. So in the comments, let me know what you think about his face. Does he look better in the new game, or does he look better in the older title? So, you know, just let me know. So let's actually start talking about the game, because let's be obvious, it's the best looking Assassin's Creed game ever made, and it's not even close to the previous titles. And it's not just a remaster. There's zero code from the 2013 game here. They rebuilt the whole thing thing from scratch on the same engine that ran Shadows. What you can get is a world with way more detail that holds together at any distance. Materials look real, wet wood looks wet, and there's ray tracing on every single console, with even Shadows couldn't manage. And then there's the water, which I'm not going to talk about yet because the water isn't just part of the graphics. There's this whole system that's built into it that we'll get into later in the video. But one thing I'll say now is that the best looking scenes in the game are the ones that they didn't even touch or do that stupid procedural animation sort of thing. The original cutscenes, the same performances from 2013, are now playing through this new engine and they look incredible, which makes what happens with the new cutscenes and the new story stuff a big problem, especially within the community, because this is proof that Ubisoft can make amazing looking cutscenes. Sometimes they just don't want to. But then let's talk about the story, because what surprised me the most is that they also didn't touch the main story, and of course that's the right call. Edward's whole arc is exactly how it was. The same beats, the same lines, the same performances. They even brought back the original voice actors to record the new bits. It's still one of the best stories in the series outside of Ezio's and Connor's. And with the correct amount of changes to the story, it's pretty good. When I say changes, I mean they've moved around some of the tailing missions, so you no longer have to do tailing missions. Almost half of Black Flag's original game was tailing missions, so now you don't have to do them. I mean, you can, but there's different options on how you complete a mission. Some naval missions, well, I say some, one naval mission you will have to tail, but you can't fail it. It's somewhat automatic, and I'm pretty sure it's just there because it looks cool in the nighttime. So it's good to see they didn't really change anything. With that, there's also some new dialogue, more time with Adewale and Bonnie, and there's new Caroline scenes early on that make you feel what Edward's leaving behind before he throws it all away. Darwin McDevitt, the original's lead writer, came back for some of this new material, and you can tell. But then when the new cutscenes hit and the seams begin to show, the original motion captured scenes are fully mocapped, they look stunning, but the new ones don't seem to be. And after hours of the good stuff, dropping to something clearly cheaper and made with the procedural animation is very jarring. It doesn't necessarily wreck the story, but every time it happens, you somewhat feel disheartened because, especially during the end sequence of the Robert Maynard stuff, it's incredible. I mean, during one of the missions with Blackbeard and Robert Maynard, you actually see his face fully mocapped, yet when it comes to sit down at the beginning of the new Robert Maynard stuff, you start to see where they're using this procedural animation stuff. Now, it isn't very, Cassandra hands on hips. A lot of it is, but some stuff isn't. So they can do it. I just don't think they decided to, which is a massive letdown, especially within this game. With new story content comes new characters. You have Lucy Baldwin, the Padre, and Tobias Deadman Smith. Now, the Padre and Lucy's story missions are side quests, officer quests. You can complete them at any time, basically after you get the hideout. It's worth doing because they give you such good upgrades for your Jackdaw, and you're definitely going to need them because the Naval is a lot more difficult this time. Lucy's story is okay. I'm not really a fan of the character, just because depending on when you do her story in the main game, it sort of makes Edward seem like a little bit of a bitch. I don't think he would let anyone speak to him the way Lucy does, so I don't know why he does during her missions. The Padres are a lot more intense. The ending is very graphic, if that makes sense. It's very, I don't want to say cool because it's a bit of a grim ending, but it's very nice to see them go towards the darker tone, which I think Assassin's Creed games need to move back to. And then you also have Tobias Smith. Now, his story plays out during the A Quest for Gold storyline with Robert Maynard, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And then that continues after the new side stories are done, and then you have them unlocked for your ship. They're really cool, and just their abilities I think are worth getting. You do also need them for the final Robert Maynard questline stuff, so you kind of have to get them anyway if you want to finish the game in 100%. So yeah, it's worth it for the abilities. I'm just not a fan of Lucy's characterization or just writing, and I feel like, of course, the cutscenes could have done a lot more work. but what isn't in the game is the modern day, and I want to talk a bit about that because it's a bit of a touchy subject for me. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, I love the modern day in Assassin's Creed. I think it's one of the best parts of the franchise, especially with Desmond Saga, because it gave us a reason to go into the Animus. With Shadows and now with Black Flag, we have these rifts. What was said during the promotional events, what we got told, whether it was at the studio or by developers online, these rifts would tell alternative storylines to Edward, to Mary, to Blackbeard, to whoever it was we were going to be playing as. In my mind, and in a lot of players' minds, this meant we would be playing through alternate storylines as these characters, but that wasn't the case. What happened was we became this Animus Edward, and let's take Blackbeard for instance, we would progress through a story that we already knew about Blackbeard. It would just be Ego, this Animus character, telling us what Blackbeard did throughout his journey, and then we had to fight him, which was just stupid, and then we learned about what would have happened if he turned into a good guy or he took his pardon and stopped becoming a pirate. That was only in the last 5 minutes of a 30-minute quest line, and even then we didn't get to play as him, we just saw his character static, sat on some gold on a chair. I was expecting a lot more, which, okay, may have been my fault, but I was expecting to play through an entire section as Blackbeard as soon as he takes his pardon, and then we follow his journey as Blackbeard, the, I don't know, governor of Nassau, or if Mary Read left the assassins, what would happen then? I thought we would follow those characters through those storylines, not just get 5 minutes after. And what annoyed me the most was Edward's, because the storyline was, what if he returned home after 2 years? What we got was, again, 2 to 5 minutes of Edward meeting Caroline at the door. No cutscenes, no emotional reunions, nothing like that. I thought that's what we were going to get. I think that would have been a lot better than what we actually got, because when you say you're going to do something like that, you have to make it more emotional, especially with these characters. So that's a huge pet peeve of mine from this game and just the rifts overall. And I think some of you are going to agree with me. Let me know if you do. I just think they could have been done a lot better. And if we have rifts back in remakes, you know, let's say we get an AC1 remake. What if we get a rift, you know, when Altair at the beginning of the game messes up and goes to the assassination? What if Altair wasn't a moron? You know, I want to see and play through that journey, not in an Animus, not listening to this Ego speak for 30 plus minutes about something we already know happened. Let us experience something new, which I think would be a lot better than what we got. So the next question is, how does it actually play? And honestly, mostly great, with one real annoyance. The combat's been rebuilt and it's a lot better and more in-depth than the older title. It's not as floaty as the RPG ones either, but the flashy finishes are still there, including the double takedowns. Pretty easy and everything dies fast. It's sort of more of a, you don't want to hack and slash type of system. You want to break their guard and get a finisher as soon as possible, which you can use by sweeping their legs, shooting the gun at them, kicking them against a wall, or just rope darting them towards you. It's pretty cool, and the takedowns you can perform are really awesome, which brings it back to the older style games. You can perform up to 4 takedown finishers, which is pretty cool. I'd like to have a sword that allows you to do a bit more, but that falls into more of the annoyance side, which is they've cut the variety of weapons. You're stuck with dual sword throughout the entire game. Hidden blade combat is gone. However, you can use your hidden blade for the takedowns. You can't grab an enemy's sword, any other type of weapon, nothing like that. And unarmed combat only shows up in the scripted brawls and pub fights. Even though the system is clearly there for unarmed combat, I think we're all just waiting for people to mod it into the game. This though is where the remake is a kind of step back from the 2013 game, and the fix is right there. Just let me put the sword away and use my fists, or add a hidden blade style combat thingy scenario, because in Shadows we could do it with Nawe. We had the Tanto blade and the hidden blade, so she was able to use that. Why not give Edward a dagger and his hidden blade so you can perform hidden blade takedowns and weapons and cool moves like that? I think that is what they should add in a future update. Let's go into parkour because it's smoother and faster, although if you use the original control scheme, for me anyway, it loses that bit of flow. I hate having to sprint with L3 in an Assassin's Creed game. I lose a lot of control. So what I did is I remapped the controls so I sprint with RB or RT, however, whatever trigger you have your controller set to, and it makes it way more fun, a lot more enjoyable. And when you move the control scheme for fighting from the R1 button down to square again or X or whatever it is you use, it makes it feel like the older game, and it's just a way to bring back that classic control scheme. So that's how it fixed it for me. I would like there to be more animation variety though with Edward, whether it's falling down a roof, jumping from one, or just rolling off a roof. What I liked about in Shadows is that once you get to the edge of something, you can double press to do a roll, and now I will just instinctively jump off. I wasn't able to do that in Black Flag Resynced. I think that should be an option, and hopefully something they can just add straight into the game. Then let's talk about stealth, because for me, it's the worst part of the entire game. Crouching and hiding in Shadows is there in a somewhat mild form, other than we got in Shadows. So stealth is better than the original 2013 game, but it's miles behind AC Shadows. There are no throwing knives or rocks that you can use to distract guards or throw something to get them to move location. You can't go prone, and what was the most annoying thing for me throughout the entirety of my playthrough was enemy detection. Enemies were able to detect me from across the map, which was incredibly annoying. If I took out a guard stealthily, like in Shadows or even in the original game, a guard shouldn't be able to see me, and they wouldn't, but in Black Flag Resynced they did, and it made stealth just feel way more difficult and annoying than it should have been. I was playing on hard difficulty, I put it down to normal, it was still happening. I put the stealth difficulty down to easy, and it was still happening. And then on the adverse side of things, if I walked straight up to a guard in a restricted area, he wouldn't see me until I actually assassinated him, and then that would alert a guard around the corner. It's very finicky with the stealth, and I think it's something that can be updated throughout the game, or if they bring us updates, but I feel like they should have just implemented Shadows straight in. We should have been able to turn off light sources so that we can hide in the shadows and so that we're not seen easier. There should have been a way for us to make a guard move to a new location, again with being able to throw a rock somewhere, and of course throwing knives. It was a secret little feature in the original game, so now I can have it in Shadows. The game's built on the same engine. I don't know why they couldn't have just added that in. I feel like stealth tools need to be melded in together, and hopefully for future titles you pick every great little thing and then implement them into the newer title. But yeah, for me, gameplay wise, stealth is the worst thing out of all of it, which sucks because stealth is Assassin's Creed, and when it works, but when it doesn't, which is 70-80% of the time, it just makes you feel a bit shit. And now this wouldn't be Black Flag without the water or the naval, because it's what made the original feel like magic, and nothing since has matched it. The tech director has said the water is where they put all their effort into pushing it past Shadows and the original game, because it somewhat closes the loop from the start of this video. Remember back in the day when this game was announced and everyone was panicking about Skull and Bones and if it will look or play like that? Well, the single best thing to come out of Skull and Bones was its water tech, and it's sitting right here in the Jackdaw's wake. The thing everyone was scared of turned out to be the carrying gift of the entire game, and you feel it when you play. The storm rolls in, the sea changes, the ship starts fighting the water instead of gliding straight through it. I honestly stopped playing the game more than once just to watch it. The weather also changes how the Jackdaw handles, and sailing is still the best part in any pirate game, and the new officers add the cool new fire modes to the ship. Legendary ships are back and they're even more brutal, and the audio, which has the original score and new sea shanties, are fantastic. I think this is the part of the game they nailed 100% because it looks and feels real, and it's just incredible to experience. Kirkpatrick, who is the lead on all of the water tech, did an amazing job with himself, his team, tech team, and honestly, all the praise should go to them for the water tech. It's just incredible. And yeah, if you haven't experienced Black Flag Resynced for yourself when it comes to naval, you have to go and do it because it's exceptional. The fight still feels similar to the original game. You will pick up the controller and instantly feel like you're back playing the original game, and I think that's what makes it a lot more special than people realize, because it feels like you're returning to an old friend who you once knew and played with. Well, not played with, but we're not going that far. But you know what I mean. It's an experience that you had once before that you come back to in a familiar sense, just upgraded out the wazoo, and it plays and looks incredible. And yes, you do feel like a pirate every time you board a ship and take down the enemy. So the real question is this game going to be worth your time? And for me, it is. This is the definitive edition of Black Flag. It's the best story in the series after Ezio's, preserved in a proper remake. It has a seamless open world with no loading screens going in and out of cities. It has missions that fix the original's worst habit of tailing. There's a hideout that you can upgrade, and it makes you feel like you're caring about the people that live there. So yeah, this is the version I'll point people to from now on because it is one of the best. It's not perfect, do not get me wrong. The combat rarity got cut, the new cutscenes dropped the ball, and some of the new writing goes off the rails, and of course the stealth is neither here nor there. And I think that's what keeps it from being the perfect remake. But at the price it's at, and of course it's cheaper than Shadows was at launch, I think it's a no-brainer to purchase. If you love Black Flag and that classic Assassin's Creed feeling, I think you should 100% get this game. And if you somehow never played the original, it's again worth it. I think everyone wanted a different first remake though, obviously with AC1, but I think that's the point, because Ubisoft didn't fix their most broken game. I think they took the most beloved one and used it to remind everyone what this series feels like when the people making it actually care, and when we get a game we care about. At the end of the day, it's not the remake we asked for, but I think it's the one we and the franchise needed. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about this game in the comments section down below. Are you going to pick up Black Flag Resynced? Have you picked up Black Flag Resynced? Is it everything you wanted, or do you want more out of it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Again, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm going to be doing more Assassin's content like this, so yeah, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video.